Hello everyone and welcome back to another video here on Sam's Crafty Castle, and today this is, I think, the cutest Halloween card I've made so far, maybe ever, and definitely is my favorite of the year so far. Not quite halfway through all of the ones I have to make. This is card number 3 and I need 10, so two more to go to get halfway through. And there's definitely going to probably be some that need to get made off camera or saved for next year because I think we're going to run out of time before it's really time to crack down on Christmas crafting, which honestly I'm very excited for. I'm very ready to start Christmas stuff. Um, but I'm making a little scene card today. I mean, you just saw the finished card at the beginning of the video, but we're doing a little scene today. I have had my eye on these train sets from Pretty Pink Posh for a while, and I finally had a discount code earlier this year, and the timing just worked for me to be able to get the whole collection. So one of the trains is a Halloween train, so that was the starting point for this card. I chose to use my distressings for the sky background on this one for no other reason other than I just felt like it. I had them and I've been cleaning out my craft room and stuff, so there's quite a few things in this video that are really just me finding stuff while I've been cleaning and going, oh, I should use that instead of what I would normally reach for, which all works just as well, but still, sometimes it's fun to mix it up. So I started with, whenever I do a night sky, I like to start with a purple on the bottom because these inks are a little bit translucent, so which means you can kind of see through them a little bit, so you can get some fun layering in. And I just love how the purple looks underneath everything. And I just, especially for Halloween, I think the purple adds a little spooky to the whole situation. Um, so I started with just the whole thing purple, and then I had two different blues that I used, and then I used some black right at the top. And I actually did kind of blend the black over the whole thing, so I blended from the top of it down, and not really over the whole thing, because a lot of that purple is going to get covered up once I start putting the train in the hills I have for the background in. So I start at the top with the black and then I blend down and I don't put more ink on my brush, and it just sort of darkens and smokies, I guess, the rest of the sky without like covering it up like I would if I just like kept re-inking my brush all the time and put as much black ink down as I could. But I just like the way it looks and the way it just tones everything down just a little bit. So now I am stamping all of my trains. And this is a situation where a lot of times this is when I would use my scan and cut to cut all these out because I'm stamping so many images all at once. So it's just very easy to like load this into the scan and cut and let it cut. But since I kind of been doing that a lot lately, I actually decided to show you more of my process of when I don't use my scan and cut, which, if I'm gonna be 110% honest with you right now, I did start to regret about halfway through this, because I was like, gosh, it would have been so much easier to use my scan and cut. And also at the very first moment when I started all of this, I was like in the middle of cleaning my craft room and I was like, oh, I have to film a video. So I started filming, and if you don't know, I'm also simultaneously doing a Kendra's Card Challenge live series right now. So I have all my stuff out for that. My desk was all messy from me like cleaning and organizing things. And I was like, I don't want to move everything around to be able to get my scan and cut out and use it. So we just made it work. And I was like, well, I can show everyone how I would do this if I didn't have my scan and cut, because I know that's not something everyone has. So I can show you guys what to do if you only have the dies. So one thing I wanted to talk about, but I didn't quite finish. Well, actually, no, it's still happening. Don't have to say that. So I have this railroad tracks here, right? Here's the tricky thing with things like this, like with these railroad tracks, and there's a lot of other stamp sets that are like this. If you have these like long line type stamps, if you will, these are a little tricky to die cut. And that's why I'm playing with this so much here, because it's very, very hard to get this on straight so that it matches the die cut. This happens a lot if you do a lot of flowers with very thin stems. This happens a lot with those as well. They're very, very hard to get lined up to die cut. And this also, if I should have done this in my bigger Misty too, if I would have done this in my regular Misty instead of my mini Misty, it would have given me a little more wiggle room to play with too. But you could see me like really trying really, really hard to get it to line up straight. But also at the same time, I was very aware that I'm going to do this railroad track and there's a very good chance it's not going to die cut for me. And so I had in my head a backup plan where we could get away with just using the die, but I also just wanted to see what would happen with the stamp. But I realized almost as soon as I pulled it off that it was gonna bend and there wasn't gonna be anything I could do about it to get it to line up with the die. And this was when I started questioning the whole like, oh, maybe I should have used my scan and cut, because you can worry about that less with your scan and cut because your scan and cut will find the lines no matter how they are. Where with the dies, you kind of have to specifically match them to like how the dye is already made. So we'll have to color it first. So I do a lot of very simple coloring on this. I don't do almost any blending really, but there is so much going on in this card that I was like, I don't think we needed to add super detailed coloring to what is already happening. This is one of I I don't tend to make super busy cards, but this one I ended up having so much going on that I actually think it worked out really well to not go crazy with the coloring. I like to save my like super detailed coloring for things where that image is kind of the star. Um because I feel like it shines more that way. But like I said, there's so much going on in this scene card that I was just like, no, we don't need to be spending all that time coloring. So most of these are pretty flat colors. They're just one color. I really don't do any blending on this at all. I don't think. I think everything is flat color. But that's not to say we don't do anything fun. And I think I might have already done one and missed it, but I'm gonna do it again. So, one of the fun things. So I've been again cleaning your craft room. I'm sure this happens to everyone. You start cleaning your craft room and you start finding things, or your brain kicks on and you're like, oh yeah, I remember I have this now, or I remember I got this, or whatever. So that's kind of what started to happen to me. Is I started cleaning my craft room, and I started finding things, and also just started remembering things that I had. And I remember I was working on this, and I remembered that I had a black Jelly Roll glaze pen. Which, if you're not familiar with the glaze pens, they're gel pens. Like pretty much all Jelly Roll pens are gel pens, but they have a line called glaze pens, and they kind of puff a little bit when you color with them. Jen Shirkus, because that's the person who turned me on to them, is uses them a lot to like highlight eyes and things on her little lawn fawn critters. And I thought for this one, I just thought it'd be fun to play with, so I used it on the bats, and then I'm gonna use it on the spider web on this train car in a little bit. And it just adds a little something. It's not like this massively like world changing. I'm trying to see if I can find where I stuck this card. It's over here, I think. Yeah. Like it just puffs everything up just a little bit. Not like a ton. It's not like using like a puffy paint or like a embossing powder that like really, there it is. There's a glaze pen. But I really like them, and I think they do add just a little bit, and I thought it would add just a little bit of interest because I am doing some pretty simple coloring on this one. Um and I also added, after my original design in my head, I added that moon. I wasn't going to do that originally either. So that's kind of what happened as I started this, and it was like just going to be the train in the sky at first. But then as I started going, I was like, oh no, I have a moon from the it's a Lanfon set. It's, I forget the actual name of it, but it's a wolves. And they had a moon in there. So I was like, oh, I can use that. Um for something. I remembered a fall-ish type spooky Lanfon Hill die that I had. So I was like, oh, I can use that for the behind the train. So it just sort of kept, I made I started planning background in my head and was like, wasn't originally gonna do stars, but then was like, oh no, I think I would like to do that. I think I would like to have stars, and then I was gonna maybe do just like little dots of like a sparkle paste, and then I was like, oh no, I have shimmer sprays. And then but shimmer sprays are tricky for stars because you don't quite have as much control over where it goes, and you kind of just have to like make the whole background sparkly. um and you don't really have a choice. But I was like, oh, I have these watercolors that I used to have. um and I wasn't sure I still had them, but I went and I looked, and sure enough I still did, so I used those for the stars. So I was just it was very much one of those shop my craft room kind of cards, and I was just looking for whatever I could find. So I colored in all of the like, I don't know what you want to say, the sort of pre-done elements for lack of a better word of these train cards, because I was having a little trouble deciding on the actual like colors that I wanted to use for the train cars, like the actual cars and not like what was in them, because that part was kind of easy. So, I was trying to figure it out and figure out what colors I want to wear. So I mostly did the cars in purple and green, because I kind of ended up going for purple, orange, green, black, a little bit of yellow. But the yellow was more just like the moon and the full, like the light for the jack o' lantern, and then the yellow that is in candy corn. But that's still kind of the vibe I was going for. It's very not quite as classic Halloween as when I did the floral card where I did the black, white, and orange. Um, like black, white, and orange is like classic Halloween to me. Like absolute basic Halloween colors. And then if you want to expand the sort of classic Halloween palette, you add in a little bit of green and purple, and I feel like that is just the Halloween vibe. I don't know if there's any logic to that. But let me know if there's certain colors that like you associate with Halloween. I know like last year pink was a huge Halloween color, which you'd think I'd be all about cuz pink is my favorite color. But I actually was not. Pink is not a Halloween color. And there were some cute pink Halloween things that I found. I had to go to Michael's for some reason last year. Don't remember why. Around Halloween, and I remember like going through because all of the pink obviously caught my eye, but it also was just like I'm like this is just not Halloween though. So yeah. And then for I got to the engine and I didn't know what I want to do, and I was kind of like, okay, all these cars are like purple and green and whatever. So I decided for the engine to go classic black and orange. So like that the engine is like the here comes the Halloween train. And then the rest of the cars have the fun colors on them. The fun colors, like the expanded Halloween colors on them. So I actually really like how this whole thing turned out. Oh, and then I just used I debated a long time what to do for the windows on the train. But I ended up deciding to do a light gray because a lot of time for windows I would do a light blue, but that just didn't feel like it fit the vibes, especially with it being like nighttime. So I wanted to do a light gray instead. So this is me trying to figure out how in the world to die cut that railroad track. I end up deciding it's not gonna work. So I actually started with brown. I grabbed this and I was gonna do because I was thinking like wooden railroad track, right? And I was gonna do it in brown, and I do die cut it. But then afterwards, I realized that that is actually the perfect brown for my trees, and I had another chunk of that sheet. I think it was a full sheet. I must have cut down for stuff and then just had scraps left. And I had enough of it to do the trees and the like spooky background that I wanted to do. So I decided to get rid of my I didn't get rid of it. I kept it, but I ended up cutting the railroad tracks again in gray, which we'll see in a little bit. So this is my process for when it just dies. I mean, for the most part, it's just your basic die cutting process. The biggest difference is when I use my scan and cut for die cutting, I tend to color second. When I use my intricut or just regular dyes, I tend to color first. It is arguably easier to color when you have your images on a full sheet of paper. Again, kind of depends on what you're doing though. But because like if you're doing really small images, it's easier to like have them on a big piece of paper. But if you're doing larger images, it makes less of a difference. If you have them on like you can hold on to them easier either way. It's basically what I'm getting at is it makes it the difference is how easy is it to hold on to while you're coloring. So it's really personal preference. A lot of people choose to color after because it's kind of annoying if you color something and then it die cuts bad and now you've colored it already and it's and now you have to redo it. Um which is what's about to happen to me. That jack-o'-lantern train does not quite survive the die cutting, which like I said, in the end it actually works out because I didn't have room for him anyway. But he is and to be fair, out of all of the images that I'm die cutting, to have that one be the only true tragedy, because I didn't notice it actually until I was editing this video earlier actually. That the moon is actually die cut a little bit funky too, but um for the most part everything made it out okay. But yeah, so and also the other thing with the scan and cut is it does read a black and white image better than it reads a colored image. It can read a colored image, but it does tend to do a little bit better if you leave them black and white. So that's the other reason to like if you're gonna use a scan and cut to cut before you color. Um so but it's really personal preference. I feel like it's less of a topic than it used to be, but I feel like in the early days that I spent more watching YouTube and less making YouTube, but um when I would watch YouTube in college, um, and watch card making videos, it was always a big discussion of like, do you color or die cut first? It's really your choice. And like for me, sometimes it depends on the day. I'm doing very, very simple coloring here. So really, if one of them gets messed up, it's really not the end of the world. It's not going to take me forever to fix it. But if I'm doing a super detailed flower, um, and I know it's going to take forever to fix it if it's wrong, then I'm gonna probably cut first and then color. So it is personal preference, whatever works for you. And we're just wrapping up our die cutting here. So I just changed my mind on the railroad track, so I just cut out the last one of those. And then we're gonna cut out this spooky border. It's not really it's what is the name of that? I mean it'll for sure be in the description down below, but I think it's called the Lawn Fawn Stitch Trees, I believe. Um border. I might not even say border. I don't know. But I am able to I just yeah. That's what I used to do my sort of spooky trees. It's I didn't this paper was a little bit bigger than the die, so I had to trim off the edges cuz it doesn't cut the edge like it's meant for you to cut edge to edge. So I did have to do a little bit of trimming there. But not too bad really. And then if this is me trying to lay everything out, and this is when I'm going, oh hey look, I don't have enough space anyway. Because at first, I was gonna recolor the pumpkin train car, but then all of a sudden I kind of was looking at them and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna have enough room for all four cars, and so maybe it's better to just let the pumpkin one go. And that's kind of basically what ended up happening. And then I also realized I didn't technically have enough space for this is also me trying to figure out my greeting because I was pretty sure I wanted to heat emboss it. So I needed to kind of lay everything out and do that first before I stuck everything down. So I'm gonna white heat emboss that. But I also had the little like connectors for the train cars, and they weren't fitting at first. I didn't like them, but it took me a little a little while to decide that I also didn't like it without them. So then I was like, well, I will just kind of hide most of them. But they'll still be there and they'll still give the effect, and I ended up liking that much better when I was done. So I just stamped the little greeting in white pigment or white pigment ink. Nope, I didn't do that. I stamped it in clear embossing ink, and now I'm just using white embossing powder to heat emboss it very quickly. Um, and the greeting also was a little tricky because this ended up so much busier than I expected it to. I was going to use an actually entirely different stamp set that has some bigger Halloween greetings in it. But after I started putting the scene together, I was like, actually, this is kind of crazy, and I don't think I want the bigger greeting to like take away from my scene. So I used one of the smaller ones that were actually out of the Pretty Pink Posh stamp set. And then I went to glue these the trees down, and for some reason did not occur to me to put glue on the actual trees. I only put it on like the hillside. So I quickly just kind of folded the card back to I would have probably been able to get the whole thing up without causing too much of an issue to fix it, but I was like, yeah, I can just bend it back a little bit and add some glue to the trees. But at least this time I remember to use the matte glue, not like last week when I grabbed the wrong glue bottle. So now you can see I've just attached all the little connectors to the train, and then that last car is getting all the little pumpkins in it. I said all the little pumpkins, like there's only two. So I attach those, and then I add my spider to the spider web. And then originally, yeah, you saw it a little bit earlier when I was first laying out the scene. I wanted the ghost to kind of be coming out of that pumpkin car, but ended up not liking the placement of it. So I just let the little ghosty guy just kind of hang out above the trees. And then I added the moon, and that was that. So now we have to pick a card base. I thought I was going to be fun and do like a Halloween color card base, but you can see just enough of it that I wasn't vibing with it, so I ended up just going with white because I thought that looked better. And that's it. That's this card. But I love this card so much. Like I said, it's one of my favorite ones I've made this year. And we'll see. I have a feeling it's going to end up being the winner. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. I'll see you again soon, and have a crafty day.